spent.
We're crossing to Ireland now. The country's waking up to the reality of the immigration crisis. Anne and I were reporting on this at the weekend.
Yes, fascinating. The Republic's main opposition party, Sinn Féin, have outlined a stricter immigration policy after a poll found that Irish voters care more about immigration than any other issue.
That's because it's out of control. Where else could it be out of control? Taoiseach Simon, he's the boss man, he's the Prime Minister. Simon Harris faces increasing pressure to crack down on what is going on. We're now joined by Irish political correspondent Ben Scallan. Ben, this story really has taken on a life of its own over the past couple of weeks, but this has been brewing for a long time, hasn't it?
Yeah, several years now, really since the outbreak of the Ukraine war, when our government made a very grandiose commitment to having a no-cap policy when it came to asylum seekers. They said we will take as many as come effectively, and specifically they said that they were bracing to accept as many as 200,000 asylum seekers entering Ireland, which for those who don't know, the Republic of Ireland's population is just over 5 million. So 200,000 in a country with a population of that size is astonishing, as you can imagine.
But Ben, where did the cockiness to say that come from? Is this because the Irish economy is in such a good place?
I think some of it is to do with that. I also think some of it is to do with the fact that for many years now, immigration has not been questioned and not been allowed to be questioned in Ireland. You know, in many countries now in Europe or North America, when you try to discuss migration, if you bring up any kind of criticism of the policy or you say, hey, maybe this has gone too far, you get hit with all the usual labels, the ists and the phobes and the typical slur words that are used to muddy this debate and derail any legitimate conversation about it. And I think in Ireland that has been particularly pernicious. So I feel like the government almost felt obliged to go all in and say, oh, no, we'll take as many people as want to come here. Let's not discuss any kind of reasonable restrictions until it was too late. I mean, we're now facing situations where there's a village in County Tipperary in Ireland where the population of the town is 165 people, and they're talking about moving 280 asylum seekers into the town. So more asylum seekers in your village than there are locals there, which is just clearly madness. I don't know anybody, liberal, conservative, right-wing, left-wing, who would think that that was a wise or sensible idea.
You can understand the people, ordinary people, being very angry about this, because it's almost as though the politicians aren't listening to their own people.
Well, they're very explicit about that. I mean, you mentioned Sinn Féin there. Sinn Féin has just released this new policy document on the need to try and, address the asylum issue. And they say how communities need to be consulted, but they specifically also say that people don't have a veto on who moves to their area, i.e. you can't say no. So at a press event yesterday, I was asking the party's leader, Mary Lou McDonald, what kind of a consultation is it? Because the government has the exact same policy, by the way. They've all used this line, oh, nobody has a veto on who lives in their area. If that's the case, then what kind of a consultation doesn't allow you to say no? The whole part of a consultation is it's to consult. I'm asking you, hey, locals, what do you think of this? Do you agree? Do you consent? And so if you've started off a consultation, but you're admitting that people are not allowed to reject what's happening, then that's just railroading by another name.
Ben, it is amazing to listen to someone like Mary Lou McDonald telling people they have no veto who lives in their area. People here that we're seeing in Coolock here and whatever are deciding otherwise. They're saying, we'll tell you, Mary Lou, what you can do and what you can't do. When is this arrogance from politicians going to disappear? It's not going to disappear at all. They've got this confidence, and this is, I mean, I don't know if this is European law that's being upheld here, or this is exactly why people in this country wanted Brexit, but this is unbelievable. As you say, 5.5 million people in the Republic of Ireland, nearly 2 million in Northern Ireland, and 20% of them no longer identify as being Irish. Why? Because they're not Irish, they're not from Ireland.
Yeah, I think as to the arrogance question, it's a strange misunderstanding that has arisen in probably not just this country, but many Western countries, where politicians and the political class at large seem to be under the misapprehension that they own the country, when in fact it is the citizenry of the country who own the country. You know, Ireland does not belong to the politicians. They are people who have been temporarily bestowed with the right to manage it on behalf of the people as representatives. And so this whole, you don't have a veto, you can't decide. Well, then who can decide? Of course, they think they can decide. They're the people who should have the say over this. And or if it's not them, it's the European Union, or it's this United Nations treaty, or whatever it might be. And the whole concept of, first of all, national sovereignty, or on a more individual level, the idea that citizens have sovereignty over their own destiny and the future of their country and community, has just totally gone by the wayside.
You know, it appears that we're losing control. That, you know, I don't care who you are or whatever in the world, none of us can solve the migration problem. So you've either got to decide yourself, what are you going to do to tamper with it, or are you going to leave it alone? Are you going to put up the borders and say, I'm sorry, it's very unfortunate what you're going through, but it's not our problem, or we'll only take extreme cases like those people affected by war? But goodness me, it's obvious we just can't control
but
this.
But a government's first duty is to look after its own citizens. That's a government's first duty. And it just makes me wonder what's going to happen next. I mean, we're just going to see more and more protests.
Yes, I mean, it seems like we're on that trajectory, certainly. I find it very noteworthy that just a couple of years ago, before things had gotten really out of control, the government received a secret cabinet memo which specifically warned them that if you proceed on this path, it could easily damage social cohesion, and particularly in deprived, underprivileged communities where services are already scarce, and then you're bringing in a whole new group of people, which will just add to the demand. They were warned about this in 2022, before things had gotten out of control. They proceeded to ignore that advice and do it anyway, and now we're at the situation where we've seen multiple riots. There's these kinds of fiery scenes unfolding in working class communities all over the country. And you think, this is just ludicrous. I mean, first of all, anybody with common sense could have warned you that something like this would happen, but you wouldn't even, if you didn't want to believe them, your own trusted advisors warned you that this would happen, and you still stepped on the landmine having looked directly at it, and then you made the decision anyway, you know?
Ben Scallan, I really appreciate what you've had to say and your analysis, bringing it to us, because so many people, particularly in England, reflecting on this, and they can see
it happening here.
They can see it happening here. Ben, we'll say goodbye to you. Thank you very much indeed. And, you know, when you make out, it's interesting that Ireland, part of the European Union, is the first to really explode about all of this. But Greece,
yes,
Italy,
yeah,
Spain, this is happening all around. I mean, you just can't make out that you're the odd one or there's something wrong with you because you see this as a danger.
But do you remember Angela Merkel saying, we welcome all refugees? Yeah. And she sort of opened her arms to them and said, our country will open our arms to you. We will embrace you, I think she said. And then was overrun, practically.
Well, where's she now?
Well, it saw her out of office, really, didn't it?
So let us know what you think of this. What do you think the solution is? It's a very sad, awful situation, but there's no doubt about it. The arrogance of politicians who know better than you all the time in everything, they will decide what happens. Should they start listening to the people who live in their constituencies?